Welcome to my quest for a 50-pound carp. A journey spanning 10 years, documenting my angling on a unique and challenging lake, searching for one giant fish.
That's got to be it, that's got to be it, surely. Oh my God!
I guess my quest for a 50 kind of began the day I caught my first 40-pounder, partly because I'm never quite satisfied, and as soon as I've released a big fish, the mind drifts and wanders to what's next, but also because of the ripples that catching that fish created within our area. We began looking for a new venue, a place to campaign, a place to focus our fishing and try and catch that 50-pound carp. And it actually turned out to be a lot harder than we expected. No matter who we were talking to and which lake or club we were trying to join, the owners and managers of these fisheries kept turning around and saying no. Not long after we made our Park Lake campaign film, the venue had got quite busy with other anglers, and a guy called John Bartley decided to take matters into his own hands. You see, John's quite an old school angler. He's well known in this part of the world. He's caught a lot of big carp, and he's respected and trusted by the majority of the fishery owners, people in the angling trade, shall we say. And you see, John had gone around telling people that the big common in the Park Lake was dead. Local anglers heard this and jumped to the conclusion that because I was the last person to catch it, it was my fault. Apparently I'd had the fish out the water for too long doing my photos and filming, and the big common in the Park Lake had died. Putting two and two together, we realised that the owners of these lakes had heard the rumours and believed them, and as a result myself and Alex were banned.
Whilst all this drama was going on, John was quietly going about his fishing on a little farm pond, catching some unbelievable carp. Now this small pool originated thanks to a guy called Andy. 30 years ago, Andy, the son of a farmer, found himself the owner of a digger, and through his passion for fishing, naturally began excavating his own pond. Over the coming years, he invested everything he earned into further extending and eventually stocking the lake with 10 small carp. A year or so later, the lake was drained temporarily to see how the fish had grown, only to find they were all gone. In their place was one monstrous pike. Heartbroken, that experience could have ended his lake owning journey there and then. But Andy, as you'll come to learn later on in this film, is a very determined and passionate man. And he had a vision that included an idyllic lake and some seriously big carp.
I kept asking John where exactly he was fishing, but all he'd tell me was that it was a little farm pond. But the photos that he'd send me, they were really quite impressive.
At the time, the rumours about Alex and I being bad anglers and killing the big common were a bit out of control. We were being hassled by a number of people in the area, and going about some peaceful fishing was what we truly wanted. That year we fished the shallow res. It was bliss. We loved it and caught some of our best carp ever, but although they were stunning wild fish, they weren't big, and of course we wanted a 50-pounder. That winter I returned to the Park Lake in search of one of the rarer fish I hadn't yet caught from there, and one December morning I caught the big common again. It was alive, and I had the proof. Speaking again with John, he admitted it was him who had started the rumour about the fish being dead. He hadn't meant for other people to jump on it and say it was my fault. His intention was to put off the guys from further afield who'd been leaving litter and threatening to steal the big un. And to be honest, John's rumour had worked, with everyone except a few locals believing the fish was gone.
I chose not to publicise the capture at the time, instead allowing the rumour that the fish was dead to continue. But John, I think he owed me one. Look, he said, you fished the res and caught a few of them, but how about a little go on the farm pond? An opportunity to fish this place was too good to ignore. And although myself and John hadn't exactly seen eye to eye at first, I was willing to put those things behind us. I was given the chance to have a guest ticket, fishing alongside one of the members, and I only had a night. But what I remember from that first session was going into the fishing hut, and in there they had some photos of carp caught from the lake over the years. Amongst fully scaled, linears, chunky mirrors, immaculate commons, there was one fish that stood out. I got really lucky on my first session, landing a 25-pound common, a fish which at the time was one of the biggest carp in the lake, although they had recently spawned, so releasing the eggs, the fish had dropped quite a lot in weight. I soon convinced Andy to give Alex a ticket too. It didn't feel right for me to be enjoying this magical fishing all on my own. And besides, at that time, Alex and I literally did everything together. It was March the following year when Alex and I got the chance to fish the lake for the first time together. It was still quite cold, but none of the other members had actually fished the lake yet that season, so we felt confident. Of course, Alex went and got a couple of bites, landing not only a 30-pound mirror known as the Warrior.
I don't think I could have asked for anything better.
But also that starburst linear, the one I'd seen on the wall of the fishing hut.
It's actually a linear, but with a big patch of scales up by its dorsal, and I'm blown away. And we've got to go home soon, so I'm pretty happy to catch this in the last few hours of the session. Oh, I can't believe it. We'll be back here very soon.
At the time, we both worked for a fishing brand based in Essex, so the commute up there and back was a little bit complex, and we didn't actually fish the lake all that much. Sometimes we'd squeeze an overnighter in, but primarily it was sort of booking a few days in, getting down the lake and treating it as a special occasion. We didn't want to fish it all the time and spoil ourselves, because the carp weren't too hard to catch, and they were decent size and beautiful too.
Yes! Time to get home, warm and dry.
Those early days on the farm pond were magic. It was paradise. For two young, enthusiastic carp anglers, the opportunities to stalk them, watch them bubbling, knocking the reeds, and catching just the most beautiful carp we'd ever seen. We really felt like we were the luckiest kids in the world. Initially, we just fished pink pop-ups and little PVA bags of pellet, simple rigs, and we'd throw them at bubbles or to signs of showing fish. If one would roll of an evening, we'd quickly bang a rod on it, and normally in 24 hours of fishing, we'd probably catch a couple.
Nice. Right.
Oh! Oh! I was filming!
A fishing session with Carl and Alex isn't complete without one of us just ending up covered in mud.
And then one season, in mid-April, so very, very early, the carp began spawning. There was now shed loads of small carp in the lake, and I mean from 1 pound up to about 2 or 3. This actually made the fishing a lot more difficult. Stealth was of utmost importance, and catching a little 2-pounder and it's splashing around and you netting it and releasing it and having to re-chuck the rod was enough to scare off most of the bigger, wiser fish, kind of ruining your chances of getting through to those better ones. Over the next year or two, we caught a few more fish, but there was quite a lot of repeat captures. We knew we hadn't caught all the fish in the lake, but there were certain ones that visited our landing net sometimes 2 or 3 times. Now, I tend not to be that obsessed with rigs and baits. I like to just focus primarily on locating the fish and casting where they are, but there's something to be said for small changes making quite large differences, because in 2017 we stopped fishing with pink pop-ups off the bottom and started fishing with pepperami, spicy sausage basically, fishing on the deck. It actually blows my mind how different our fishing was after that. We went from catching quite a lot of fish, primarily small ones, to catching less, but exclusively big ones.
Oh yes, God, that is huge. That is massive.
It's the fish I caught when I first joined. It is! I can see the scales. The switch to fishing a sinking bait rather than a blatant pop-up certainly seemed to be working. And as you can see here, I'm still using the same rigs and baits 8 years later. The only thing that has changed is the fish have grown a lot, and I'm now fishing for potentially some of the biggest carp in this part of the country. The year of 2018 was very different. We didn't fish the lake much. Partly because we bought a house, moved out from our parents. I met a girl who's since become my partner. And at the time, to be honest, we thought we'd caught most of the big ones. Hello. The only time we actually visited the lake that year was to help with clearing some weed. The lake is naturally very fertile, and therefore weed grows so thick, fast, vibrant and lush in this lake. Personally, I really like a weedy lake. Fishing somewhere with loads of aquatic vegetation and clear water is, for me, just much more exciting, much more interesting. And besides, when you've got plenty of weed growth, I think there's more natural food in there. The fish have a nicer colour to them when they're swimming in amongst the weeds and in the clear water. And I just think a weedy, clear lake is like the perfect environment, the perfect habitat for growing big, beautiful carp. However, it was being fished by a few people by this point, and with only 4 swims on the lake, the pads, the old pond, main bowl and the shallows, we cleared just enough weed so people could actually cast and land fish safely. In 2019 came around, and let's just say it was a rough old year. My mental health was not very healthy. The stresses of work, a new relationship, and also trying to run my YouTube channel at the same time as doing a full-time job, at the same time as trying to maintain some amount of normality was slightly difficult. And coming down to fish the farm pond alongside my friend Ryan was just the tonic I needed.
If we can get through the stockies tonight, get one of the originals, I've got every chance of catching myself a UK PB and possibly even a worldwide PB, because they go up to probably mid-40 in here.
On my sessions with Ryan, we didn't really catch very much. There was a lot of small fish in the lake at this point, and I think we had a number of these sort of little babies that have been spawned in the lake. I might have managed one of the original stock that year, but to be honest, I didn't really fish very much. Most of my focus was on getting my health under control and then working out what I was doing with the YouTube channel. In 2019 and 2020, the lake became a lot more challenging to fish. This was for multiple reasons. First of all, the lake got a lot bigger. It was extended, and he dug out a whole additional section so the fish had more space, more places to hide. There was also a lot of small fish in the lake. These carp, they'd bred so successfully that it was stuffed with little ones. Getting through to those bigger fish was really difficult. And then also it was just a lot busier. There was a few more members, a few quite keen members, and importantly, one or two of the carp had grown a lot bigger. The lake was now producing a couple of 40-pound carp, and as a result, more people want to fish for them. The lake became slightly more crowded.
I can't believe it, after all these years, and how much bigger it is now. Bloody hell.
Fishing at the farm pond didn't really align with what was going on in our lives at that point. We needed to make lots of films. Taking the YouTube channel full time meant if we weren't uploading, we weren't earning. And blanking on the farm pond for 3 or 4 nights at a time wasn't exactly going to make great content. Instead, we travelled a lot, filmed loads, and actually probably had some of the best times of our life. The price of the ticket down here went up around that time too. Of course, because the carp were growing larger, it makes sense that the price would go up. But Andy also needed to invest in an otter fence because as times change and otters become more prevalent in different parts of the country, the risk of losing these fish became a reality. Ryan decided not to renew his ticket that year, partly because of the increased cost and also because he'd not long become a dad. His young son, Benji, wasn't very well, actually diagnosed very early on with cystic fibrosis, which meant that he was in and out of the hospital on the regular. It was a really quite stressful time for him, and although I knew that a bit of fishing would calm him a little and probably be quite good for the mind, I also totally understood that when you have a child, when you bring a little human into this world who isn't very well, you have to prioritise. And as much as it hurts me to say it, fishing comes after family. Andy actually drained the lake down that winter. Not all at once and not completely dry, but one section at a time, brought it down to a sort of a small area and were then able to remove a lot of these smaller carp that had been born in the lake. Seeing the lake empty was fascinating because all of a sudden I wasn't guessing. I was actually looking at what I'd been casting to in previous years.
It means they spend a lot of time there.
Carp, as they're feeding and going about their lives, seem to polish certain areas of lake bed, cleaning all the silt away, leaving just the clay. And then in other areas, they'd actually dug like undercuts, little holes into the reeds. And being able to see where these fish had been going about their lives really got me thinking about my tactics and some of the spots that I might fish when the lake became full again.
But yeah, areas where there's like those little hard bits, or over here, these sort of, I don't know, burrowed out holes. The problem is that good spots like that change every year. So when the lake fills back up and the carp are swimming around in this end again, they might be feeding somewhere completely different.
In 2022, I think I only did a couple of sessions, but both of them were much longer. I stayed for 3 or 4 nights on each occasion, whereas in the past I'd just dipped on for a night or maybe done 24 hours. Both those sessions were great for learning a little bit more about how these carp behave. I figured out that if I fished at the top of a marginal shelf, I tended to get more bites. That shallower water, it warmed up quicker, and for whatever reason, I was catching quite a few.
We got him.
But all of them were the sort of smaller ones. By smaller, I mean 30 pounds and below. When I fished a little bit further out, found where that shelf was, that drop off, and fished at the base of it, I got less bites. But in amongst those few bites were some really quite big ones. On my last session that year, I was joined by Cal, my cameraman, and together we had an absolute blinder of a trip.
It just so happened that on this session, I decided to try what's known as the washing line method. Over previous years, I'd noticed that nothing scared the carp as much as touching fishing line. This restricted me to fishing my rods very close in, minimising the amount of line in the water and reducing the chances of scaring away the fish. However, this meant only fishing on the near side of the lake, and often resulted in fish feeding and bubbling to my left and right, whilst my rods close in front of me sat completely motionless. To fish multiple spots in different areas of the lake, with only a couple of meters of line actually in the water, I decided to cast across onto the opposite bank, collect my lead and attach a rig. Then, with the aid of a landing net pole and a bank stick head, I could swing the rig into position, trap the line underneath an elastic band, and then suspend it above the water. Here it could scare no carp, and should I receive a bite, the elastic band would release the rig and a drop back be registered on the bite alarm.
Wait, Cal, I'm in! It just kept getting better and better, building up and up, more and more bites, until on the last day of our session, just as I was about to pack away, I caught my first 40-pounder from the lake. That might be 40. No? Has it ever done 40? I don't know.
Maybe 34 probably.
Oh.
That's 40 pound 4 ounces all day long.
The craziest thing about that fish was its last capture. It weighed, I think, 31 or 32 pounds. The fish had grown 7 or 8 pounds. It had become a totally different beast. And all I could think was, if that fish had grown so much in the space of like a year, how big were those commons? And how big could that linear be? Sometimes it blows my mind how tricky these venues can be. It's only small. Might be 50 carp, 60 carp in here. 3 acres of water maybe 4, I don't know. And somehow, even when I know I'm in the right place, there were carp in front of my swim last night. My rigs were presented, I'm 99% certain. How you can still blank is sometimes baffling. It's funny because on large venues, really big lakes, the fishing can be tricky. But it's only tricky because it's hard to locate the carp. Here, location's pretty easy. You walk around, see a few signs of fish, plop in some rods, and you're on them. There's carp around your rigs. But that's not enough to guarantee you're going to catch. In fact, for some reason, these very small venues, probably because the carp are coming in contact with fishermen's line, bait and rigs on a daily basis, they wise up. They become really shy and they get really good at spitting your rig out. They get amazingly good at detecting bait, working out whether or not it's a safe area to feed in. Those are the excuses I'm making for now anyway. 2023. That was a mad one. Not entirely sure what happened, but I went fishing crazy. I've been obsessed by angling my whole life pretty much. As long as I can remember, I've loved fishing. But 2023, I proper went for it. Determined to catch my first UK 50, I thought I'd found the perfect place to do it.
That's it. That is it. Oh, crikey, that's the big common.
Whilst I was distracted fishing elsewhere, the farm pond had produced its first 50. I think it was the perfect common, a fish I caught at about 36 pounds. It had rocketed all the way to just over 50. Not long after that, the lake did another 50-pounder in the shape of the lost common. Around Christmas time, I chatted with Ginger Tom about these big fish,
and we decided that we'd fish the lake together, starting our campaign on the first day of the year, 1st of January 2024.
There's no one else I'd rather see it in with other than Becky and my friends.
Yeah.
This'll do. Oh, and Tom. And maybe Cal.
Shut up. This and the following 2 or 3 trips all resulted in blanks, a harsh reminder of how tough the lake had become. John called me in the spring and let me know that the lost common had died. I also found out around the same time that Dave's mate had died a few years previous, and the warrior, that fish Alex caught on his first session, that hadn't been seen for a long time either and was probably gone. With the news that some of those big fish were no longer alive, I did have to give renewing my ticket a little bit of thought. But I suppose it's a fact of life that it ends. Things don't last forever. And in a way, that kind of motivated me to get on with it. It's happened numerous times on a lot of different places I've fished, where the biggest carp in the lake dies, and all of a sudden, some of those ones that were, second in command race up and fill that fish's place. It's to do with biomass, available food, and also some kind of pecking order, I think, that when the big one goes, the other fish sort of have more opportunity to feed and grow. Knowing that this could well happen at the farm pond, I decided I'd renew my ticket and keep going. John was absolutely adamant that the starburst linear could be mid to upper 40s by this point. I wasn't so sure, but having seen it in the water once, it did look big. So myself and Tom fished the lake a few more times that year. We didn't get down here enough. We didn't really get anything going. And as the fishing had become so much more technical and so much more tricky, we started having to bait little hidden away spots and try and locate areas that were less blatant, the obvious clear spots on the lake. The bar, the shelves where people would normally fish had just become a lot more tricky to get bites from. We had to start thinking outside the box and changing our approach once again. A lot of the members were now using bait boats to drop rigs, especially when fishing tiny holes in the weed. This was definitely working, with the majority of the bites coming to those using boats. However, I'm not the greatest lover of technology within my own fishing. I'm all for the latest cameras and lenses for making these videos, but when it comes to angling, I quite like the process of creating those angles. The casting, feeling the lake bed, and the difficulty that comes with getting a rig to a tricky little spot. The lack of a bait boat and the fact that wading and using the rowing boat to drop rigs was banned meant I focused even more on line lay. Keeping that line out the fish's way, staying quiet and being patient were my only advantages on this lake. Some members would probably only catch 2 or 3 fish over the course of the year. Of course, some had more time than others, but it was a fact that just getting a bite from one of the big original stock was an achievement in itself. Landing it, that was a whole different story.
I can't stop it, man. I'm gonna have to follow it.
Not every battle ended with 2 anglers up to their waist in the lake, but nearly every time a good fish was hooked, the boat was needed to successfully land it. Including this one on my second session of this year.
Come on, still be on, please still be on.
It's still there, all right.
Woo! Well, that was eventful, wasn't it? What can I say? Caught a nice carp, and the crazy thing is there's fish that look just like this that are knocking on the door of 50 pounds. Swimming around just out there. I'd filmed a lot that summer. In fact, between myself, Tom, Cal and Isaac, we were out filming on the regular. I think I caught carp of 40, 50 60 and 70 pounds that year, but they were all abroad. And carp over in the Netherlands, in Germany, in France, they do just grow a lot bigger than they do in England. And whilst I'd caught like my PB that year, still the idea of a 50 living in the farm pond was the absolute dream. Now my friend John tends to fish all winter. There's no weather too cold to make him hang up the rods. Where exactly John was fishing, I wasn't certain. He was keeping things under wraps as usual. Me on the other hand, fishing wasn't on the agenda. I was working on my business, catching up on editing, and trying to build a company which could or can in the future allow me a little bit more time fishing.
We started off just selling pictures, stickers, calendars, and then brought in the book when myself and Omi worked on that a few years back. But I think the next big step is fishing tackle.
For some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why, I am 1,000,000% focused and dedicated to trying to help new anglers get into the hobby. I think because when I started fishing, there were some barriers. It was a little bit complicated for me, not having parents that fished who could help me learn fishing. I've just invested the last sort of 20 years of my life into educating and trying to inspire young people to go fishing, instead of spending their whole time on a screen or a computer game or stuck inside. Get out, enjoy the world, enjoy nature, and find a hobby that can really change your life for the better.
Still there.
It's very rare that I'm not thinking, planning, or working on some sort of project. And at this moment, I was determined to make carp fishing easier to get into. Rigs, baits, and the tackle required to catch big carp is sometimes confusing, and it can be a minefield trying to get hold of the right gear. Alongside Omi and my friends at Corda, our aim was to create a simple carp fishing kit containing all the bait and tackle needed. Together we'd made a leaflet to explain how to use it, and amongst long days at my desk editing, I knew I needed to get out soon, test the kit one more time, and then get to work making them with my dad. Initially I thought about testing the kit up at the farm pond, but it had been fishing really hard, and Ryan called me that week, his voice brimming with excitement. The sun was shining and we were going fishing. We were heading to an old haunt of ours, somewhere we hadn't fished together for many years, but before that I decided to call in at my local tackle shop for their after school quiz.
Have you seen Harry?
Quick, look busy!
Hey man, how are you?
There's another prize for the kids,
No
for the
way.
quiz. The first fish with pole rod ever.
That's sick. Can't wait to stock them. Right, we need all children. Unfortunately, parents can't be involved because that would be classed as cheating. So, it was a long time since you went to school. Right, school so.
I'm not.
What is the name of the big starfish in SpongeBob SquarePants? Yes. Jamie, my man, what did you win?
The first fishing pole fishing rod.
No way. That's wicked.
Is there a fire over there?
As well as a few ducks giving Ryan line bites all evening, I did receive one solid take from a carp. However, no sooner had I picked up the rod, it was gone. This lake was actually the first place Ryan and I carp fished together, and being back after 15 years was wonderful. So how did that go?
Quacking.
What do you mean, quacking?
All of those ducks were diving over my spot.
Remaining at the lake until around midday, I did see the odd fish cruising, yet disappointingly, I'd lost the only bite of the session. But it's a sign that the carp are feeding, so it's probably about time I get back on the farm pond. In the signing in hut, I checked the catch report, and to my relief, none of the big ones had been caught so far this year. I chose to fish the main bowl, as although it was warm and there were definitely carp in the shallows, the cold nights were sure to push them back into some deeper water. Quite importantly, earlier that day, John had turned up to fish. He showed me some photos, as it was here he'd been fishing all winter. It quickly became clear he was down here for one particular fish. But since I'd turned up first, I'd luckily ended up in my first choice swim. I've chosen this area because I just know that this is where it gets caught from. I don't know that it's here. I can't know if it's in this zone rather than the others, but between the bar and the shallows, that fish tends to get caught. On the inside. I've seen it up by the pads, I've seen it in the new end, I've watched it, but if you go back over the captures of this fish the last sort of 5-6 years, this is the zone. Now, unless you're stalking, literally casting at a specific fish, you can't really have that much influence on which carp you end up catching. But there are certain times of year, moon phases, specific spots and particular baits that some fish seem to prefer over others. Yes, I'd done my research, but tactics-wise, I wasn't going to get carried away. I brought along my simple carp kit, deciding it needed one more test before I could confidently say it includes all the right items. Attaching a ready-tied rig and using only tackle from within the kit, I baited up with my trusty old Pepper Army and set to work positioning the rods. Stealth is everything down here, so I lowered the rigs in as quietly as possible, and as before, kept my lines away from the carp using the washing line method. Now, I should be able to swing this exactly to that spot. Just got it caught over a tree then. There we are. Now just a little bit of pellet fed over the top. Done. That is gonna go, he says confidently. This time around, due to more bird life being on the lake than ever before, I lowered the rod tips just under the surface, keeping my lines an inch or so below. Safely away from the ducks, but equally concealed from the path of any fish drifting through. Despite doing everything I could to earn a bite, the lake was fishing hard, and the next morning I woke early to listen out for showing fish. I was brushing my teeth. I was literally brushing my teeth. Oh, he's woken up. This might be big. Could be a good one. I'm not sure. Oh yes. Oh my god. Oh my god, that looks so decent. Trying to do this whilst filming is really, really difficult. Okay.
It's the one. Hey John, it's the starburst. Oh my God, it's the starburst. I think this is the one I've been after. It looks just like it.
Yeah, that's it. That's got to be it. That's got to be it, surely.
Oh, my net's falling all the way down. Mate, I think it's it. I'm not 100% certain, but it is. No, wait. Oh my God. John, your hand's on my line. Your hand's on my line. Oh my God, it's definitely it.
Oh, I was leaning against it.
I was having a heart attack, now I'm having a laughing fit. Alright, just get this thing in the net, man, it's definitely it.
Give up, please.
It's definitely it.
Yeah. Oh, look at it. Get it in, John, get it in, get it in.
Definitely it.
Yeah!
Might be a little bit wet.
Sorry about that. Have you got any other clothes?
Yeah.
Okay. The fish is in the net. I can't believe what just happened. I literally am losing my mind right now.
Well, £50 exactly.
Are we?
Yeah. £50 too?
You serious?
I'm being serious, look.
It's just over 50.
Yeah.
I was flying the drone. I was like, it's a beautiful morning, let's get some B-roll. It's just the same rod. Ah, white tips. £40. Hey John, you bring me a bit of luck down here, don't you? It was another giant carp, but to be honest, I didn't even remember to weigh it. In most cases, a fish like this would make my season, but what I lifted from the water next absolutely dwarfed it. This bit of wood, by the way, a bit dangerous. Oh, it's just better than I ever dreamed.
My God.
I've had the ticket for long enough. The day was going to come eventually. But this is what happens if you never give up. I felt humbled, privileged even, to hold this creature. I'm lost for words. Having seen it landed by my brother on his first session at the lake, to then know all the time that had passed, the changes in my life, changes in the world around us, and all the while in the farm pond, this beautiful creature had grown and thrived in the environment first created by Andy all those years ago. I can't believe though, out of all of the fish in here, that I finally got it.
We're all rolling, bro. Just enjoy it for a sec.
Goodbye, my friend. Thank you.